Azula vs Kuvira is one of the most debated matchups in Avatar, but most people skip over something that completely changes how this fight plays out. So instead of jumping straight to a winner, we're going to break down both fighters, their upbringings, and how they both actually approach combat, through scenes, comics, and even creator statements. Hopefully by the end of this video, you're going to learn things you probably didn't know about, because this fight is closer than you think. Kuvira, also known as the Great Uniter, is a metal-bending prodigy, but unlike Azula, who grew up a princess, Kuvira didn't. She was raised by parents who constantly neglected her, and later, finding a broken vase and assuming Kuvira did it, they locked her in her room, prompting Kuvira to use earthbending, tearing through the wall to escape. Even as a child, she was aggressive, using her bending to destroy things, until eventually, it became too much and her parents abandoned her, sending her to the Beifongs. That feeling of being cast aside will always haunt Kuvira, becoming the driving force and the reason she ends up wanting to rule over the Earth Kingdom, as she won't abandon her nation the way she was abandoned as a child. But even though Kuvira is just a kid, we see just how terrifying she really is, going as far as to crush her sister's dollhouse in an impressive display of metal bending. Aside from being a natural-born prodigy, already bending both earth and metal at an extremely young age, she was also sent to one of the most refined environments a metalbender could train in, learning discipline and control directly from Suyin Beifong, Toph's daughter. And by this point, Kuvira isn't just talented, she's already operating at a level most earthbenders never reach, because to even metal bend, you need to sense the smallest impurities of earth within the metal itself. And this isn't just speculation. When series creator Mike DiMartino was asked about how Kuvira compares to some of the strongest earth, lava, and metal benders in the series, he responded by saying that Toph would give Kuvira a good fight, while also confirming that Kuvira is undoubtedly a master earth and metal bender. What makes this statement so interesting is that the creators never say that Toph would beat Kuvira, instead framing the matchup as a genuinely competitive one, while ignoring the other benders mentioned entirely. But eventually, we meet Kuvira for the first time in Legend of Korra, when she is dancing as part of Suyin Beifong's dance troupe. This is huge in the nation of Zhao Fu, as they see metal bending as an art form, keeping their movements precise and controlled, while remaining fluid and maintaining precision, similar to waterbending philosophy, which plays a huge role as to how Kuvira actually fights. Like in the scene against Suyin, where Kuvira chooses to toss the car overhead instead of stopping it head on. There are many fights that point to this being the case, with metalbenders and Zhao Fu all seemingly sharing the same philosophy. But something that makes Kuvira different from the rest of the metalbenders is that she also served as captain of the city's royal guard, which means her bending wasn't just expressive, it had to be practical, precise, and effective enough to take down her opponents as efficiently as possible, leading her to develop a mix between the fluid, adaptive movement of Suyin with the military discipline and efficiency you would see from Lin Beifong. But Kuvira doesn't switch between them, rather utilizing the best of both and creating her own unique bending style. But where Kuvira was raised in an environment that refined her, Azula was raised in one that weaponized her. Azula is the princess of the Fire Nation, a prodigy who displayed elite firebending ability from a very young age, showcasing a level of control and precision far beyond her years. During the 3 years of her brother Zuko's banishment, and without her mother to keep her grounded, Ozai begins shaping Azula into something far more dangerous than the child we first saw. Through harsh and relentless training, Azula develops lightning generation, wielding blue flames that reflect her mastery over the element, and perfects one of the most precise and lethal bending styles in the entire series. By the age of 14, Azula is already operating at the highest level within the Fire Nation, second to only Ozai himself. But because of how she was raised, Azula doesn't just rely on power. She's been conditioned to believe that power is control, and that fear is the most reliable way to control others, that love is simply a weaker version of it. And for a time, this works. But as the series progresses, Azula begins to realize that despite all the power she's gained, people still leave her, they still betray her, and that realization begins to break the very foundation she was built on. Because if fear doesn't guarantee loyalty, then everything she was taught starts to fall apart, leading to the identity crisis we see near the end of the series. But years later, during her journey in the Spirit Temple, Azula becomes self-aware enough to admit that in her mind, she had no choice but to become what Ozai made her, ultimately accepting her destiny and regaining the same calm and calculated mind that had always made her unique. Azula had also refined her lightning to become more versatile, being able to create a massive ball of lightning and having the ability to instantly generate lightning as well, clearly becoming more potent with the ability since her loss to Zuko during their Agni Kai. Both Kuvira and Azula reach mastery with their elements at ages nearly unheard of, but when it comes to combat, these two couldn't be more different, and the way they fight is exactly what makes this matchup so interesting. Kuvira's fighting style is built entirely around control, not just control over metal, but control over the fight itself, preferring fast, minimal movements paired with precise and deadly strikes. Kuvira's armor further enhances this, carrying a large amount of metal directly on her body, giving her immediate access to a wide array of tools and weapons. Each individual strip is capable of cutting through dense material with precision, as we see with high-level metal benders like Su Yin. But what makes this truly dangerous is how quickly she can deploy it, because Kuvira isn't building her weapons from scratch. As shown in the art book, her armor is made of pre-segmented metal, stored in bracelet form, meaning instead of creating weapons mid-fight and having to constantly refine them, she's simply releasing them in a single motion. This removes the need for a setup, allowing her to attack, bind, or reposition almost instantly, unless she chooses to fully commit to a kill, requiring her to refine the metal sheets into blades. But compared to traditional metal benders, especially those in Republic City, whose armor is primarily limited to grapples and zip lines, this armor specifically gives Kuvira access to more tools, more range, and far greater efficiency with minimal movement. It's not just fast, it's optimized for control. And the only real limitation to her speed is how quickly she can act on the draw. And Kuvira doesn't hesitate. We see this in her fight against the bandits, taking out multiple opponents in seconds, not wasting a single strip of metal, and using only what's necessary, dodging and weaving through attacks with complete control. When designing this character, the creators even referenced Muhammad Ali, with the idea of float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, shaping her combat identity. And we see this clearly during her first fight against Korra, where Kuvira controls the pace of the fight entirely, choosing when to engage and when to counter. We also see how dangerous Kuvira becomes when fully committing. In her fight against Su Yin, another Master Earth and Metal Bender, even in the environment that favored Su Yin, Kuvira completely outclasses her, showcasing just how refined her technique truly is. But the fight that stands out the most is her confrontation with a fully realized Avatar in Korra, where Kuvira is able to keep up with the Avatar, even matching the Avatar in a prolonged close quarters exchange, and that alone places her among the highest level of fighters in the series. Kuvira isn't just controlling metal, but constantly reading her opponent, and choosing the most efficient response in real time. But Azula, from the moment a fight begins, is already dictating the pace, not by controlling space the same way Kuvira does, but by overwhelming it. Azula's fighting style is built on constant aggression, fast, relentless attacks designed to give her opponent no time to think, no time to react, and no time to recover. Unlike Kuvira, who minimizes movement for speed, Azula builds momentum for power, creating devastating attacks capable of sending her enemies flying. But aside from this style of combat, she mostly relies on bending through her two fingers, using the finger jab to create a more concentrated point as opposed to the typical fist of a firebender, making Azula's attacks faster and less exhausting while giving her much greater precision. Firebending also carries kinetic energy when fired, which is why she is seen knocking people back with her most basic attacks, even breaking down solid structures with her bending alone. But for as powerful a firebender as Azula is, it's her lightning that makes her beyond formidable, with her charged lightning being lethal enough to kill anyone caught in its path. Zuko gets hit with this lightning technique trying to protect Katara, and even though he redirects it, it still nearly costs him his life. So who really wins between Azula and Kuvira? More often than not, the answer is Kuvira. And the reason for that outcome doesn't come down to raw power, because Azula absolutely has the power to kill Kuvira. The problem is that this simply isn't Azula's best matchup. In Avatar, fighters can often be separated by Jing, as told by King Bumi. Azula embodies positive Jing, overwhelming her opponents through pressure, aggression, and constant escalation of the fight. Kuvira, on the other hand, operates through a mix of neutral and positive Jing, preferring to wait, counter, and strike at the perfect moment, while also being proactive enough to force her opponents onto the defensive. And for an Earthbender, that level of aggression is extremely dangerous, because it isn't what someone like Azula is used to fighting against. We see multiple moments throughout the series where Azula is caught off guard by earthbending itself, from Toph to even Aang. We even see Kuvira using the exact same earthbending technique that caught Azula off guard. And while Azula is incredibly precise, she's still prone to making mistakes under pressure. Even against Katara, she's seen losing control of the fight before Zuko intervenes. And against metal benders, mistakes become far more dangerous. Because unlike most elements, metal bending doesn't just punish you with damage, it punishes you with restraint. Meaning Kuvira doesn't need to kill Azula to win this fight, which is part of what makes metal bending such a dangerous evolution of earthbending, as this material is significantly more durable and harder to break out of compared to earth. As anyone who can't bend metal can't risk getting caught, like when Kuvira fights both Suyin and Korra, pinning them both down with metal. If this was any other bender in the same exact scenario, the fight would have ended there, not giving the opponent a chance to even utilize their fullest capabilities, much like how Katara ultimately defeats Azula during the Agni Kai, using metal chains to stop her from moving, instead of outright defeating her. So this matchup isn't the most fair for Azula, as the real question becomes, can Kuvira restrain Azula before Azula can kill Kuvira? And the latter becomes significantly more difficult when you consider the type of opponents Kuvira has already been able to catch. Because if Kuvira was capable of restraining someone like Suyin, a fighter whose movement is arguably even more fluid and acrobatic than Azula's, despite Suyin being the very person who taught Kuvira metal bending, understanding her fighting style better than almost anyone, then Azula's chances of avoiding capture begin to drop dramatically. This matchup becomes even more unfavorable for Azula when you realize she's never fought a metal bender before, and definitely not one as unorthodox as Kuvira. What makes Azula so dangerous in The Last Airbender, her speed, agility, and aggressive movements become far more common in The Legend of Korra, where fighters are generally more evasive and combat styles have evolved significantly. And while lightning is easily Azula's greatest advantage, instantly generated lightning hasn't consistently been shown the same lethality as her fully charged attacks. We see this in her Kimura Kage form, from Mei dodging at close range to Zuko being hit and getting back up. And this isn't limited to the comics. Throughout both The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra, instantly generated lightning has rarely been shown fully incapacitating opponents, aside from Minghua's water conduction, rather being used to create openings to escape as a last resort. Meaning the charged version of Azula's lightning remains her most reliable win condition, especially against someone like Kuvira, who is significantly faster than the opponents we've seen reacting to her instant lightning. But this creates another problem. Charged lightning requires commitment, a clear opening, and time to execute, which becomes incredibly difficult against a fighter built entirely around pressure and immediate response. Kuvira constantly forces Azula to reposition, attacking from multiple angles at once while manipulating the environment to create openings. Kuvira's fighting style naturally exploits the weaknesses in Azula's approach to combat. Where Azula overwhelms her opponents through pressure, Kuvira dismantles pressure through control. Even someone as dangerous as Azula will eventually become overwhelmed or trapped, as metal bending was made to end fights before they escalate, which is why we see metal benders being primarily used as a police force in the Avatar. But that's just my interpretation of the fight. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. This video took a long time to make, but sure was worth it. If you have any other topics you would like to see me cover, don't forget to comment down below. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Soul